a.m.
This is Wednesday, the 7th of July. Good morning. I'm Jason White. Right now in Ottawa, light rain, 17 degrees. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and in the Valley. Happening now outside Ottawa City Hall, a tenant advocacy group is camping out, calling on Ottawa City Council to better protect the capital's renters. Our Chris Curries has the details.
Acorn says the policy is necessary to halt the growing trend of demovictions and renovictions in the capital. Norma Jean Quibel says more corporate landlords taking over apartment buildings and replacing them with unaffordable condos. She tells City News the policy needs to include a rental replacement bylaw with affordable units.
Which basically means that when this kind of developer comes in to do the renovations or stuff like that, we want them to replace the affordable housing that is there.
She says this type of bylaw already in place in Toronto and Mississauga. The protest set for 9. City Council gets underway at 10. Chris Curries, City News.
City News time 9:01. Ontario's top doctor calling for all eligible young people to be vaccinated against COVID-19 ahead of the return to school in September. Dr. Kieran Moore says classes in Ontario schools are due to pick up in less than 2 months, with the goal of holding more in-person classes. He says vaccine uptake is lower among young people than older Ontarians. Dr. Moore notes that people will need 2 doses of a vaccine before the start of the school year in order to be fully protected. Officials in Haiti say that country's president has been assassinated in his private residence. ABC's Inés de la Catera says the president's wife was also shot and injured in the overnight attack.
Interim Prime Minister Claude Joseph saying police have been deployed to the National Palace and the upscale community of Pétionville in the aftermath of the president's assassination. Joseph claims some of the attackers spoke in Spanish but offered no further explanation.
Jovenel Moïse ruled by decree for more than 2 years after Haiti failed to hold elections. Opposition leaders had demanded that he step down in recent months. A virtual vote will be held later today to determine who will replace Perry Bellegarde as the national chief of the Assembly of First Nations. This election is expected to involve several rounds of voting, given the 60% threshold needed for victory. A delay in the vote was proposed over concerns that some chiefs in BC couldn't participate because of the evacuations caused by ongoing wildfires. Some also raised concerns about internet connectivity issues for some remote First Nations and the obstacles caused by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. The resolution calling for a delayed vote was eventually defeated, paving the way for today's virtual election to go ahead. A township in southwestern Ontario is removing statues of past prime ministers in an effort to encourage healing. Wilmot Township officials voted unanimously to scrap its Prime Minister's Path project and remove the 4 remaining statues from the site. The township had asked an Indigenous advisory firm to lead the community consultation on the project, and the firm organized community conversations and has produced a report that recommended the removal of the statues. City News time 9:03. Time now for a look at our forecast. Here's weather specialist Denise Andriacci.
Cool and wet for a few days. Temperatures will bounce back just in time for the weekend. We're mainly cloudy with showers today, up to 20 millimeters for Ottawa. Cloudy with showers tomorrow, an additional 10 to 20 millimeters of rain. And temperatures both days cool and below seasonal. For Friday, we start to see temps climb. Cloudy, a few sunny breaks, chance of showers, and highs near 23. Your daytime high today for the nation's capital near 18 degrees.
Right now, light rain across Ottawa and the Valley. It's 15 degrees in Smiths Falls, 13 in Ottawa. I'm Jason White. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
When the headlines say X,
he's got the Y.
it's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Big soccer game today. England, Denmark. Winner meets Italy in the finals of Euro 2020, even though it's 2021. 60,000 fans at Wembley Stadium allowed in to see that game. 60,000. Tonight, Stanley Cup Finals, Tampa. Game 5, attendance expected to be 16,300. Now, if the Habs can manage to get back to Montreal, have one more hockey game on Friday night, 3,500. That's 3,500. You can have 16,000 people, 60,000 people shoulder to shoulder in the streets of Montreal, just not inside the arena. Good morning. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News. We're on the radio. We're on your smart speaker. We are on your streaming device. And we're on Rogers Television until 10 o'clock this morning. And then Rogers Television will leave the Rob Snow Show behind to bring you today's City Council meeting. And we'll have some coverage of today's City Council meeting as well and review yesterday's FedCo meeting. We'll be joined a little later in the program by the fabulous Sue Sharing, longtime City Hall columnist with the Ottawa Sun. But I was thinking this morning, sports and politics. I was listening to some of the overseas radio on my drive into work this morning, getting ready for the big soccer game today. Some call it football. And part of the analysis included how England's success in Euro 2020, even though it's 2021, may actually be helping Boris Johnson politically. There is this belief that if England can actually pull this off, actually win the whole thing. I mean, first of all, the UK is going to go bananas. And the celebration can only help the sitting prime minister of the time, Boris Johnson. The country, let's face it, the UK, it went through a terrible experience with the pandemic. I mean, a tremendous loss of life. But now that country is going to fully reopen on the 19th of this month, fully reopen. And some people think if England can win this tournament, it's going to be Boris the Unbeatable. Boris the Unbeatable. That's what some people think. I guess if you want to put it in the Canadian context, you could. Sidney Crosby scores the golden goal. Okay, you remember that? Sidney Crosby scores the golden goal. On home ice, no less. And Canada wins the gold medal in men's ice hockey. It's Vancouver. And about a year later, what happens? Stephen Harper wins his one and only majority government. And then there's this. Okay. The current prime minister is a massive Montreal Canadiens fan. Okay. He tweets as much about the Habs these days as he tweets about any public policy. He's a Habs fan. There's no secret of that. Now imagine this, okay? Montreal comes all the way back. And the Habs win the Stanley Cup for the first time since 1993. They do 7 games. It's the Canadian miracle on ice. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you what, if the Trudeau Liberal majority government was not carved in stone already, it could be after something like that. Because politicians, they love to bask in the glow of athletic greatness, just hoping a little bit of it rubs off. Now, as for our show today, I think David has done an outstanding job lining up our program this morning. We've been taking this deep dive into the riding of Ottawa Centre this week, taking a look at that race ahead of what we expect will be an election, a federal election. Maybe the call comes next month. That's what people are looking at now, next month. This is a riding to watch now, since Catherine McKenna announced she's not seeking re-election for the Liberals. Yesterday, we had one of the candidates on the program who hopes to become the NDP nominee in that riding, Angela McEwen, Labour economist with CUPE. I mean, it's a riding with serious left-wing activism, okay? It is hard to count out the team in orange, hard to count out the dippers. Remember, provincially, it's held by the New Democrats. The local city councilors are all way out on the left, and they're very well organized. But today we're going to have one of the Liberals that hopes to be in the race, Yasir Naqvi, used to be the Liberal MPP for that riding, used to be the Attorney General of Ontario. He lost in the last provincial election to Joel Harden of the New Democrats, but a lot of Liberals lost their seats in that election. Remember, the Liberals went from a majority government in Ontario to not even being an official party. And Mr. Naqvi was one of those, one of many, who went down to defeat. And now he wants to make a political comeback. And he has said he's going to seek the Liberal nomination in Ottawa Centre. But maybe Mark Carney is too. celebrity all-star central banker, former governor of the Bank of Canada, the Bank of England. But Yasir Naqvi on the program, coming up in about 5 minutes from now here on the Rob Snow Show. And on Wednesdays, it's time to score your political fix. We do that right after the 9:30 news. Two great political analysts are on the show this morning. Tim Powers is from Summa. Susan Smith's from Bluesky. She's a liberal. Tim's not a liberal. And I love it when they're on my show together. And I mean, there's so much to talk about. We have a new governor general designate, and she sounds like a fabulous choice, in my opinion, for this role of governor general. Mary Simon, historic appointment. And the more I read about her, the more impressed I am. The more I think this person is fabulous. She's fabulous. And I just want to say, since it was revealed yesterday that she would become the next governor general, I've been thinking, seriously, I'm just telling it like it is here. I've been thinking, gosh, I know so very little about the Indigenous people of Canada's North. I mean, next to nothing, really. So if she can help people like me learn a little bit more about that part of our country and its people and the history and the good and the bad and the ugly of the truth, I think that's only going to be a good thing. If that's her legacy, that's going to be a good thing. I don't usually have much praise for the Prime Minister. I mean, you know that. But I think he has done an outstanding job with this appointment. I really do. So that's one of the things we'll get into during your political fix. We also talk about the polls. 2 polls in 2 days. One has the Liberals up by 12. The other has the Liberals up by 3. But the thing is, the Liberals, to me, the big thing is the Liberals still lead where it counts. In Ontario and Quebec, massive lead in Atlantic Canada. Abacus data says it's not even close. It's going to be the Liberals in a landslide. Leger says it's closer than some people think, and that a majority government for the Liberals is no guarantee. So we'll get into that during the political fix. And I hope to get into it again during the talkback hour. We do that every morning between 10 and 11 o'clock. That's when I gather your opinions. Find out where you are on some of the issues of the day. I'm more on the right side of things. Okay? You know my bias. It's always on full display. I don't hide it. And I look at these polls, especially I look at a poll like the Abacus poll. Gosh, I wonder what's going on with the Conservative Party. I mean, the last leader of the party, Mr. Scheer, they chased him out of the job. Okay. He grabbed 34% of the vote in the last election. That was better than the Liberals. Grew the seat count. Okay. Party won about 120 seats, but no breakthrough in Ontario, no breakthrough in Quebec, so no more Andrew Scheer. Got to find a new leader. You know, now here we are on the cusp of an election call, by all accounts. And this Abacus poll, I mean, Abacus has been polling Canadians for a long time now. It says, we have never seen a lower number for the Conservatives than what we have published today, 25%. And I went through it all yesterday, you know, behind double digits nationally, way behind in Ontario, way behind in Quebec, falling further behind in BC, losing male voters, losing female voters, trailing in every age group, even with retirees. So when I talk to Conservatives, you know, they are speaking in, they're speaking in existential terms. The very existence of the party is on the line here, that if this ship is not righted and it's not righted soon, the loss could be historic, humiliating. And that it could end up tearing this version of the Conservative Party apart. That this right-of-center party, this so-called government in waiting, this united national alternative to the Liberals, could go through a bitter divorce again, and the Liberals will govern Canada forever. That in the end of it, maybe it's overdone. I don't think it's overdone. It's happened before. It splinters again, and there's going to be some kind of Western Conservative Party that comes out of the Wexit movement, and there'll be whatever's left. Okay, the Eastern Canadian PC Party, Red Tory Party. You think that could happen? You think that could happen? Let's say I know, Snow, you're sounding bleak this morning, buddy. Hey, 25% in the polls is pretty bleak, okay? Let's say the Conservatives, they get smoked on election night. Well, they lose something like 30 or 40 seats, and once again, there are very few Conservative MPs from Atlantic Canada or Quebec or Ontario. Does this Conservative Party survive? Or do we have a People's Party and a Wexit Party, and then whatever's left of the Conservative movement east of the CN Tower? We'll get into that at 750-1310 after the 10 o'clock news. I mean, they say campaigns matter. Conservatives better have a heck of a campaign, or maybe Diefenbaker was right and polls are for dogs. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Ottawa Markets was created by the City of Ottawa to help rejuvenate the outdoor markets program in Byward and Wellington West, where we have the Parkdale Market. And so we set to work on bringing in the right team with the right experience and reaching out to local vendors and local farmers, because we knew when we did a survey of our customers that was the one thing that was really important to them, both at Byward and in Parkdale, is to start bringing back that local product. And that's what you can see behind us here at the York Street Farmers Market. We put in place a Farmers First policy, which means that we will deal with farmers from the region first. And we're going to give them priority in terms of placement. They're going to have reduced fees in coming to the market. We've also made it free for any farm that's been in operation for under 2 years. The market also put in place a BIPOC initiative, which is a Black, Indigenous, and Peoples of Color initiative, which provides grants and support opportunities for folks from those communities to come on out to the market to reduce systemic barriers that have existed. As a farmer's market, we can have a variety of vendors here, from an artisan to a microprocessor who's taking local ingredients and putting them into a product in a kitchen and selling that, to breweries and distilleries this year, which were changes that the province put in place, which allowed us to bring in a few of those vendors as well, which I think is a nice surprise for people sometimes at 9 in the morning after a pandemic. But it's been going really well, and some of the breweries have been pretty appreciative, because for them, whether it just be doing delivery or curbside pickup, it gives them an opportunity to come back out and talk with their customer and talk about what makes their product so special. Throughout the market, the health and safety protocols that you're going to see, masks are still required. That is obviously the case, and you'll see a number of signs noting that around the area. We've got a number of hand sanitizer units, I call them droids, throughout the area that you can sort of just grab a pump or a squeeze wherever you go. But what we've also had to do is reduce the number of vendor spaces we have in the market by 50%. This ensures that we can guarantee that our vendors are going to have that distance, that we can, have a little bit better flow around the market. But what we also did was, as I said, we created the York Street Farmers Market, which is just microprocessors and local producers only, and that's on Saturdays. In Parkdale, we launched the night market, which is bringing a lot of the same content, but in the evening, and residents are sort of spilling out into the park. So we're looking at what we're doing as trying to support, create, and enhance public space for the residents of the city. It's been great, the community, which is what this market is here for, and then as tourism comes back, obviously we'll welcome all visitors. But the response has been really great. The community's come on out, they're speaking with their wallets and their dollars, which obviously at the end of the day, we want a great experience, but it needs to be a valuable economic opportunity for the vendors who are coming out.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Yasir Naqvi is the former Liberal MPP for Ottawa Centre, former cabinet minister in the Ontario government, and he has made it known that he will seek the Liberal nomination for an upcoming federal election in that same riding, Ottawa Centre. And Yasir Naqvi joins me this morning on City News. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob. Great to talk to you again.
Well, it's great to hear from you, Yasir, as well.
Stop calling me.
It's this is what happens to former politicians, right? We can't get a hold of you when you're in office, and then we stop calling when you're out of office. So
it's good, but it's always good to hear your voice and your point of view.
How are you?
I'm very well. I'm very excited, and it's been, of course, a very challenging time with the pandemic, as it has been for everyone. A lot of time with the family, with my children, a lot of time to reflect. Yes. And to keep ourselves healthy and our neighbors healthy.
What have you been doing since you've involuntarily left politics?
This is exactly the term I use. Well, listen, obviously my number one job has been to be a father to my two young kids. My son, eldest, is 9 years old now, and my daughter is 5 years old. So I've been obviously very active in their life, which has been extremely refreshing. They teach me a lot, and especially during the pandemic, because kids, as you know, mostly had virtual learning at home to be able to provide that support. I also, shortly after leaving public life, after the last provincial election, became the chief executive officer of a national not-for-profit foundation called the Institute for Canadian Citizenship. It's former Governor General Adrian Clarkson and John Ralston Saul's legacy foundation that I ran for almost 2.5 years. The purpose of the organization is to foster active citizenship, inclusion, and belonging among new Canadian citizens and all citizens. And it gave me an amazing opportunity, Rob, to travel the country, meet different kinds of people, coast to coast to coast, and really work on important issues as to how do we continue to build an inclusive Canada.
Okay. That's very interesting. I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about that. But before we get to that, you've announced your desire to seek the Liberal nomination in Ottawa Centre, so essentially making a political comeback. Why?
Well, this is a pivotal time for our country as we come out of the pandemic and focus on rebuilding our economy, our communities. Catherine McKenna, as you know, has announced her desire not to run again. She has been a great colleague. I worked very closely with her when I was a member of provincial parliament. She worked tirelessly for the community of Ottawa Centre. And I feel very strongly that we need a committed, experienced voice for our community as we move forward in the next chapter beyond this pandemic. And I have the qualifications. I have the experience. I have done this job and have a track record of delivering for our community. So I'm excited.
For example, what would you point to if somebody says, this is part of, we can thank Yasir Naqvi for getting this, that, or the other thing done in Ottawa Centre. Give me an example, Yasir.
That's a very good question. And look, at the provincial level, healthcare and education are two of the biggest issues that you work on. So, I was very active on files like the rebuilding of the new civic hospital, the expansion of our various hospitals in the community, building new schools like Broadview Public School or the Elmdale Avenue Public School in my community. City building projects like the LRT or the Flora Footbridge in the Glebe. All these things I was extensively involved in from the beginning to the end. I have the experience, Rob, of building bridges, building coalitions with the community, and navigating through the complex machine the government is, and ensuring that we get the right resources for our community here in Ottawa.
Okay, look, the day after Catherine McKenna announced that she wasn't going to run again for the Liberals in Ottawa Centre, people were already speculating, Mark Carney, there's an opening for Mark Carney. What do you think about that whole talk that Mark Carney could be a candidate for the Liberal nomination in Ottawa Centre?
I have a lot of respect for Mr. Carney, and I'm thankful for his service to Canada. The decision whether he decides to run or not, that's his personal and his family's decision, and I leave that up to him. Right. I know that I've had conversations with my children. I've had conversations with members of the community. I'm getting tremendous support and encouragement from the community, people asking me from all quarters that I should consider running. And I'm overwhelmed, frankly, by that level of support, Rob, and really excited to put my name forward to declare my intention to seek a nomination in Ottawa Centre.
Right. But why you and not him? Why you and not him? If I was a Liberal, why would I want you and not him?
I know our neighborhoods. I have the community connections, and I have the track record of delivering for our city. I'm ready to serve as the Member of Parliament for Ottawa Centre. I will hit the ground running a day after election if I'm privileged enough to be elected. Okay.
You know what it's like to run against the New Democrats in Ottawa Centre. There's an NDP history in that riding. The late Paul Dewar held that riding for about a decade. Ed Broadbent before that. I mean, it's been Liberal for a long time, but there's a very, I would say, left of center activist movement there that's very well organized and cannot be underestimated. What would you say to people who might be considering voting for the New Democrats in Ottawa Centre? Why Liberals and not New Democrats in Ottawa Centre?
Yeah, and so you're absolutely right. I do have have experience in contesting elections against New Democrats in the riding. Look, Ottawa Centre is a progressive place. Ottawa Centre wants people in our community wants fairness. They want equity. They want people who will be focused on issues like the climate change, focused on issues, very important issues like reconciliation, meaningful reconciliation with Indigenous people, or the kind of things that I have been working on over the last couple of years and want to continue to focus on is how do we break down systemic barriers that exist towards Indigenous members of the Black community and people of color. Those are the kind of issues that people in Ottawa Centre are concerned about, and they want their elected representatives to focus on. I have that experience of doing that work not only just in government when I was the Attorney General of this province or the Solicitor General, but also over the last 3 years outside politics. And that's what I'm going to present to the community. I can tell you, Rob, I'm getting support not only from Liberals in the riding, but I have a lot of New Democrat friends, members of the community who are coming out and encouraging me to run, telling me that they will support me, many members of the Green Party, because they know the work I've done. They see me as somebody who builds consensus, somebody who believes in building that coalition, that big tent to get things done. I've never been an overly partisan individual. Partisanship is, of course, part of our political process, which is important. But my focus and my effort and my commitment to the community is always to deliver and by bringing people together and getting things done.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Yasir. Nice to hear from you again. Yasir Naqvi, former Ottawa MPP, seeking the Liberal nomination, he says, in Ottawa Centre federally. Your political fix after the news. City News.
number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
This is Wednesday, the 7th of July. Good morning. I'm Jason White. Right now in Ottawa, light rain, 12 degrees, 14 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news this hour. They're pitching tents at City Hall. Anti-poverty advocates camping out this morning to call on Ottawa City Council to do more to protect tenants from being evicted by landlords who renovate or tear down their homes in order to charge someone else more rent. Ontario's new top doctor calls on everyone to bear arms and get a COVID-19 shot. He says vaccination is our ticket out of this pandemic, and he's keen to get her done before school resumes this fall. More visitors for residents of Ontario long-term care homes. The province now allowing outdoor visits of up to 10 people, or up to 2 general visitors and 2 caregivers for an indoor visit. 3 people have been charged in a drug bust in Cardinal. Officers raiding a home in the village on Walter Street, seizing drugs that included fentanyl and crystal meth. They also hauled away digital scales, mobile phones, and nearly $4,000 in cash. The bust happened last Wednesday, but police only just issued a statement on it. City News Time 9:32. I'm Jason White. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's time to score your political fix. Tim Powers is here, Summa Strategies. Good morning, Tim.
I hear you're all wound up, Dave tells me this morning.
All wound up. It's always good to be. It beats the alternative. Susan Smith is here from Bluesky. Good morning, Susan.
Good morning, Rob. I'll bring the voice of common if you're all wound up.
Okay, that won't be too hard on a day like today. Look, Canada has a new Governor General designate. Mary Simon will become the first Indigenous person to hold the office. I think it's a fabulous appointment. Susan, let's start with you. What do you think of it?
I absolutely agree with you. She is eminently qualified. She is the right person for she was the right person for any time, I think, in Canada, but she's definitely the right person for this time. She's been a diplomat. She's been involved in constitutional negotiations. She's been an advocate for education and Inuit rights. She's a bridge builder is how she's positioned herself. Her mom was Inuk and her father was from the South. She was educated at a day school. She understands some of what Canada's Indigenous people have been through, and I think she will be a wonderful voice and presence. I also think, of course, because of the fiasco we had the last time around, there has been an absolutely thorough vetting, and she fully understands the job and the interactions with the Canadian public, the Canadian people, so I think she'll be a source of inspiration for people, too.
Okay. Tim, what do you think of the appointment?
Well, it's too bad Mary wasn't appointed 2-3 years ago instead of Julie Payette, because she was rumored to be at the top of the list at that point in time. Good, as Susan said, that she is there now. I think agree with everything that both of you said. I call her Mary because I've had the opportunity to do some work with her in the past. I don't want to sound like one of those Ottawa jackasses now to describe her as my best friend. She's certainly not that, but I've seen how she works firsthand. She's an exceptional individual and a very capable person. I think she'll be an excellent leader in that role, much in the vintage, I think, of David Johnson, who I think set the bar so very high for Governor Generals. Rob, I just have to say this to you. If you ever want the job, though, you need to go to CBC because yet again,
I guess. Yeah.
The Governor General designate has that CBC experience. And of course, she's married to somebody all three of us would know well from his days in the media, Whit Fraser. So he is a former CBC journalist who's a very capable individual in and of himself. So they've got two excellent people over there, and Mary Simon will do wonderful work.
In fairness to her, Tim, her broadcast experience was a long time
50
ago.
Years ago, yeah.
And,
50 years ago.
And her experience as a diplomat, our ambassador to Denmark, creating the Circumpolar Council, being involved in constitutional affairs and advocacy, that's much more recent work for her. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't want your listeners who are not fans of the other network to, not be happy with the appointment because of that long ago connection.
No. Let's not get too.
It's more achievable for Rob to work at the CBC than it is to be a diplomat. I mean, come on, let's be honest here.
It's a sweet gig. I won't lie. I'd love to have it. I'll there's always the Senate, though, my silver medal. So, right. But I guess to get into the Senate, it's CTV, I think, is the heritage to get into the Senate, isn't that? Anyway.
You have to lobby for a very long time.
There were two. They're both retired now. Yeah, they both retired this year, actually.
No, there's 3, I think.
Yeah, Mike's done this year, too.
Right. Mike is retired. Mike Duffy, Jim Munson is just retired. Pamela Wallen is still there, though. Yeah, okay.
There you go.
But what do you think, just quickly on the Governor General, that maybe some of the lessons for Team Trudeau learned after the problems with the last Governor General? Like, my gosh, we can't go through that again. We've got to get this one right.
Yeah,
they put together a panel. They had input from many people. They listened. They did lots of deep background checks. And I think they briefed people fully on the expectations as well. So, yes, absolutely, no question, lessons learned. The shiny pony isn't always the best pony to put in the race.
Okay, all right, yeah.
It's true for us, Rob. We're like old Clydesdale, so there you go.
That's right. Nobody will ever accuse me of being a shiny pony, maybe like a crumpled dollar bill, but that's about it. Now,
but the panel process Susan mentioned is arguably one, too, that they've used in the Senate, right? So it's not one they're uncomfortable with. Again, I think the problem with Payette for them was they got distracted by that bright, shiny object. They wanted somebody who symbolizes what they viewed their government to be. And the raw politics of this now is whenever Justin Trudeau goes to Governor General to seek a writ of election, the story is not going to be dominated for a very long period of time about him seeing the Chief Justice or his past appointment. It's now going to be, here is this significant individual, our first Indigenous Governor General. So he needed to change the channel. I mean, the other thing this does is, reaffirms the fact, what I think at least the three of us think, and most of the rest of the country, that we're headed to the polls sometime soon, because this was a key point in that path.
Yeah, it's one thing you needed to check off the list for sure, but I'm also presently surprised that an Indigenous person is accepting the role. I mean, it's the Queen's representative in Canada. So in that sense, you could say, I mean, it's the ultimate symbol of a colonial past. So the very fact that sort of, that, I don't know if you would even call it an impasse or an obstacle has been overcome. I guess I would view that as encouraging. So
I think it's testament to Mary Simon, whom we will soon be calling Her Excellency.
Yes.
When she's installed, she's positioned herself as a bridge builder, and I think she's very much of the mind that the past doesn't have to be the present, and it doesn't have to be the future. And I think she has given this lots of thought and has found and understands how she can leverage this kind of position to promote the reconciliation and the healing and the understanding that we need in this country. And I think the country is ready for it. She spoke Inuktitut first.
Yeah. I know.
The first time that an Indigenous language has ever been spoken first. She has committed to learning French. When challenged by the fact that she doesn't yet speak French, she had an answer that none of us have ever had from a leader. At the residential day or the Indian day school, they would not permit me to learn French, even though she was born in northern Quebec. So this is someone who has walked.
Yeah, why don't you speak French? Here's why, because I had to go to a government school and they wouldn't teach us. Pretty good answer.
Didn't want me to learn my other language either.
So, yeah.
So, she'll learn it, and she'll do well.
Yeah, and in that, and I'm not one to praise the Prime Minister, as I said previously, but, and that makes it an even more daring appointment by the Prime Minister, really, that she doesn't speak French.
Rob, Prime Ministers sometimes make good appointments. The best thing Stephen Harper did was appoint David Johnston, so maybe the best thing Justin Trudeau's ever done is appoint Mary Simon.
Okay.
Yeah,
Tim?
Then there's some others. But yeah, I think the other thing to understand, and this is not to diminish the appointment in any way, and there's the Inuit relationship with the Crown, the Inuk relationship with the Crown is perhaps a bit more advanced than some of the Indigenous in terms of the path of reconciliation. So it made it perhaps easier for Mary Simon to say yes, and she's demonstrated what reconciliation looks like by her very existence. So it may have made it a little easier for her to say yes than other Indigenous leaders, but that doesn't diminish the weight that is thrown upon her shoulders now, and the duties which I'm sure she'll execute with excellence. I suspect, as David Johnson did, you'll see Mary Simon lean into some key initiatives because it is the power of her office, the events she participates in, the few words but the important words that she says that helps change moods and helps change the focus of people.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the problem with Julie Payette, just this incredible resume and all of these accomplishments, but she could never seem to quite find a mission in that role. Something that she wanted to promote or what have you. Very disappointing, but nevertheless, onward and upward, I guess. So let's move along, because one of the first jobs of the Governor General will be to dissolve Parliament and call the election. What dates are circled on your calendars this week for an election call and an actual election day? I mean, are you down to actually the election is going to be called this day and it's going to be held that day? Tim, what do you got?
Yeah, well, again, with the qualifier here that none of the three of us have a goddamn clue, because the only person who knows is the Prime Minister. Mm-hmm. But Susan will have heard these dates, and again, for whatever currency they're the part of the gossip mill around here, people seem to be suggesting September 20th is a day to look at. That was the day that was supposed to see the return of Parliament. Another date floating about is September 13th. I mean, I guess all I can conclude, Rob, is we are on a path to an election, barring the outbreak of a serious variant of concern, and I suspect it will be held in September, and it will be long done and dusted before the Canadian Thanksgiving is upon us.
The election will be in September. Election day will be in September. Yep. Okay. All right. Okay. What do you think?
I'm inclined to agree with Tim. I used to think it would be October, but as Tim's been talking about the gossip mill, the minimum campaign the Prime Minister can have is 35 days, or anybody can have is 35 days. So if you wanted a September 20th election or a September 27th election, those are the Mondays, you could call that on Sunday, August 15th or Monday, August 16th. Monday, August 16th would be the latest you could call it for that kind of date. The one thing they'll be looking at, is the Nova Scotia provincial election. Yeah, right. There are Jewish high holidays in September that complicate things from a voting perspective. So if you're aiming for the 20th or the 27th, look for the Prime Minister to pay a visit to Her Excellency Mary Simon around the 15th or the 16th of August is what I think. Okay.
Let me ask you this. I have to ask you this. What the heck is this election even about? Okay, other than the madness of a power-hungry Prime Minister. What is this election about? I mean, the Conservatives are governing like they have a majority already. Why isn't the Prime Minister waiting? Why are we having an election? Give it to me straight, Susan. What is this election even about?
I think this election is going to be about COVID economic recovery.
The COVID economic recovery.
Yeah, that's what I think. There's been, the government has big ticket items in its COVID economic recovery plan, and that is what it will tell people it's going to the polls for. What it's actually about is looking at the opposition and doing a bit of Jean Chrétien and saying, this is the best you got? Good, we're going to the polls. And looking at Aaron O'Toole, who's floundering, can barely keep his party together. Jagmeet Singh is doing well. He's on a bit of an uptick, so that's something to keep an eye on. But the Liberal numbers are good. People are feeling good. people are double vaxxed. Canada is largely single vaxxed. Kids will be going back to school. People have money in their pockets, and people will be going back to their jobs, and life will be returning to normal: patios, restaurants, shopping malls, movie theaters. So it is the time to capitalize on that from a government perspective. But the story will be the mandate for economic recovery.
I think you're onto it. It's all about capitalizing.
Rob, in the immortal words of the philosopher Bobby McFerrin, don't worry, be happy. You can hear that song playing all the way through. That's what it is, right? Susan has nailed it there. It'll be dressed up as something else, but the easiest time for a prime minister or a premier to get elected is when his population is in a good mood, when they feel relief, when they feel a sense of normalcy, and there isn't a whole bunch of pent-up anger. And that's in the next little while, and mostly across the country, because we've unfortunately all been touched by COVID. It has been so dominant, and for good or for bad, the prime minister and the premiers have been very dominant in their presence through it all. It's going to be, that is the opportunity that presents itself. And if you're a political strategist in the Liberal Party and you're looking at the polls and you're looking at the mood and you're looking at the window, that's when you go, and people will cry foul, but the cries will probably fall generally on deaf ears, unless, as we saw in the last election campaign, things happen in campaigns that can change the trajectory of it. But right now, the Prime Minister and his team, and this could be vulnerability and opportunity for Aaron O'Toole, might fall victim to being a bit too cocky that they have this in the bag. But they could feel that way given some of the polls at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, we'll be back. Talk about the polls. I also want to talk about the race in Ottawa Centre as well. We just had Yasir Naqvi on the program, so we'll get your take on how you see that race unfolding right in the heart of the National Capital Region. Your political fix here on City News.
It started out with a small outdoor booth in what was called Artist Alley, which is actually the area just outside our store on William Street, where for a couple of years we sold our jewelry directly on the street. And then we slowly evolved to having an indoor location in this building, 55 Barwood Market Square. We then moved to another location in Place de Ville, and then moved back down here on Dalhousie Street at Eargear in the 90s. And then back into this building again in 2000 as a collection. I do a collection of jewelry called Cirque that's mainly beaded work with a combination of semi-precious and vintage beads. And then she does a hat collection called Fanfreluche that's all cut and sewn hats in a variety of fabrics and for all of the seasons of the year. We've curated and sourced the artisans that we represent in a lot of different ways over the years, since it's been, since 1985. Some people come to us since we're known, and other artisans that we represent might recommend that they come and see us. Some people we find at craft shows, or we see their work, somebody wears it in, and we go and track it down and bring it. And then some people, interestingly, are with us in one medium, and then sometimes they evolve to another. They're all Canadian and mainly local. With the roughly 50 people that we have, I'd say more than half of those are Ottawa-Gatineau, and then the rest are from other cities in Canada, Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, etc. If you can afford it, go to a small business and spend some money. It's lovely when you come in and give me a pep talk and tell me how much you love this place and you've been coming here for years. But if you can afford it, please spend some money too, because all the pep talks in the world are not going to pay my rent, which is still full rent even when we're closed. Then secondly, if you can't afford to spend money, follow the businesses that you want to support on social media. Go to their Instagram, go to their Facebook, follow their Twitter, and then retweet, share their Facebook page, like and comment, because if you can't afford to, as many of us can't right now, to do extra expenditures, doing all of those little things like that will raise the visibility of those small businesses, and hopefully for them result in some online or curbside or other business for them.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Okay, part 2, your political fix. Tim Powers from Summa, Susan Smith from Bluesky Strategy. Polls. Abacus data says the Conservatives are down to 25%, the lowest number ever recorded in an Abacus poll for the Conservative Party of Canada. Liberals 37. Leger, tighter national race, Conservatives 30, Liberals 33. If an election call is just weeks away, what do these national numbers even mean? Just how big is the Liberal advantage right now, Susan Smith?
I think it's quite significant at the moment, but the national numbers, as you said, are one thing. It's the provincial numbers that are the difference. You know, if you look at poll trackers, they're leading in Ontario by 10 points. That's huge. There's so many seats in Ontario. In Quebec, they're leading the Bloc by 7 or 8 points. In Atlantic Canada, they're 20 points ahead of the Conservatives. So these are the numbers all of the parties are looking at. It's the seat count. Where can we win seats?
Yep.
So this is the calculus that's going on at the moment, and this goes back to our early conversation about timing and when they want to go.
Yep. Agree, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, the national numbers, people always pay attention to those, but it is those regional races. If you're O'Toole, you want to get those Ontario numbers up. You're also a little concerned in ours. There had been a three-way tie in BC, and the Conservatives have dropped back a little bit there.
That really stood out for me in your poll.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the vote-rich regions. That also means, though, you can focus a bit more on regional campaigning. It means if you're Aaron O'Toole and you know you're at 25 now, it helps you design your campaign, right? Where do I have to spend some time early to try and get the numbers up to have a shot here? And again, look, Andrew Scheer almost won the last election, right? So anything could happen. I think Aaron O'Toole is a better candidate. I think it's fair to say the Conservatives are going through a bit of a identity, not crisis, but a bit of an identity challenge at the moment, and that's never fun when you're the leader of a party.
Well, I think crisis is good.
No, I don't think it's quite crisis. There's still unity there, but there's frustration, I think, with direction. Yeah, Rob, you're too somber.
We need a new rah. We need a rah speech from Harper.
I think saying that there's unity in the Conservative Party at the moment is a little bit of a stretch from my friend Tim.
I didn't say there was a unity. I just said there wasn't a unity crisis.
Okay. All right. No, look, we only have 4 minutes. We only have 4 minutes. I want to. There will be 100 other polls between now and the election. So, what I really want to focus on with the two of you is this race in Ottawa Centre. We had Yasir Naqvi on the program half an hour ago. How do you see this race unfolding now that Catherine McKenna's not running again? I mean, is it Carney? Is it Naqvi for the Liberals? Does it even matter? And the riding goes orange again. How do you see it? Susan Smith. Ottawa Centre.
Ottawa Centre. Well, I live in Ottawa Centre. First of all, Catherine McKenna was an excellent MP, hardworking MP, great for the riding, and she was a great minister, so we will miss her. Yasir was an excellent MPP, great for the riding, and great minister in the provincial government. He would be an excellent candidate. He's well known. Mark Carney, wherever they put him, would be an excellent candidate. There are some ridings perhaps that are suited better to Mark in the Ottawa area than Ottawa Centre.
Is Wimbledon a Liberal riding? I saw him in...
Stop. The guy's from Fort Smith, Northwest Territories. He's got his bona fides as a public servant. You know, he's done his time in finance, and before going to be the Bank of Canada, governor of the Bank of Canada, governor of Bank of England, he's a dream candidate.
Dream candidate. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You keep telling yourself that. Yeah, okay.
But Ottawa Centre, Yasir is well known. He has a ground game there. Yeah. The party can decide where the Prime Minister has the power to nominate people, and have, whether or not they have a nomination race or not. It's still just a week since Catherine announced she was not running again. So I think they're figuring that out. But the addition of those two very capable individuals to the Liberal caucus at the end of this campaign will be most welcome.
Okay. What do you think? How do you see that going, that riding, Tim?
I also live here. I think it really is a riding that is focused on. I think it will either go Liberal or NDP. I think Susan's right. Yasir is viewed as a hard-working person and has done good stuff for this riding. I think Catherine's success in this riding was she demonstrated that all politics is local and focused on getting a lot of local things done. But so did Paul Dewar when he was here, and so did Ed Broadbent. I think this riding likes a person who represents it well, who has a position either in government or is a senior player in opposition, and is a good ambassador for the riding. So if the NDP find a good candidate who fits some of that profile, along with the ground organization that Joel Harden, who defeated Nasser, has, they could win this riding too. I don't think it's going to be easy by any stretch, but it's going to depend on the candidate and whether the public in this riding believes they give a damn about the riding first.
Okay. Hey, great to hear from both of you. Thanks again. Continued good health.
And to you too.
You too, Rob. I just never want to see you in Wimbledon whites. Promise.
No fear of that. Okay? No fear of that. Okay, thank you again.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
From Summa Strategies, Tim Powers. From Bluesky Strategies, that is Susan Smith, and that is your political fix. Wasn't that great? We'll continue the political conversation coming up after the news. I want to take a long, hard, soul-searching, arduous look at the Conservative Party of Canada.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV.